Welcome back to our Steven. A fast food app just sent a Your Month in Review notification, and I'm about ready to make a change. And today, from a grocery store setup that turns into a massive age gap disaster, to a lawyer realizing he's been dating his client's wife, we've got some wild Today I Effed Up stories, all starting with a post titled, Today I Effed Up by Chasing Diagnoses for 35 Years, and the answer was in my dinner. Original post, January 21st, 2026. Let me start by saying that this is a Today I Effed Up that spans about 35 years. When I was around 7, I started getting painful swelling in my neck and throat on a road trip with my cousins. Everyone assumed I was just getting sick and that some sun and time would clear it up. I remember it vividly because it was so uncomfortable I could barely eat. I dealt with it for about a week before I got back home and told my parents. They took me to the pediatrician, who poked around and told my mom I had mumps. Despite being vaccinated, awesome, it eventually went away until around 10 when it happened again. New doctor, fresh out of school, said there's no way this is mumps and sent me for imaging and testing. Everything came back inconclusive. The new conclusion was that it was psychosomatic, and I got funneled into years of therapy and appointments about why I couldn't just let it go, why I was attention-seeking. Maybe it was ADHD, etc. The sensation never truly left, it just fluctuated in severity. Fast forward to 19, I'm in the military and home on leave visiting friends and family. This has been bothering me for 12 years at that point. I rode with a buddy to the Sprint store. It was below freezing and his truck heater had the thermal output of a mouse fart. We grabbed hot coffees before heading back out. I took one sip and felt something in my throat and neck move, like inches. I started coughing like crazy and hacked out a tonsil stone about the size of a popcorn kernel. I had no idea what it was at the time, so I wrapped it in tissue and brought it home. My parents immediately recognized it. I was relieved and figured that had to be the end of it. It wasn't. Fast forward again to about 32. I've got kids, a wife, a career. Managing tonsil stones mostly worked, but I still had that persistent lump in throat feeling almost all the time. I finally saw an ENT in the city we had just moved to. He basically said, forget the tonsil stone routines, let's just take your tonsils out. I was 1000% on board. No more weird mouthwashes, brushing like a crazy person, avoiding certain foods. I was ready to be done. Surgery happened. Recovery was insane. Blood, a backwoods ER, fentanyl for minor pain, and a hospital that looked like it had 10 people total in it, but hey, tonsils were gone. Except the lump feeling was still there. I assumed it was phantom pain from surgery and tried to live with it. We moved again to a bigger city, and I went for what felt like my 100th opinion. More tests, more appointments. The conclusion this time, allergies. I did 3 years of allergy shots. Still felt it. At that point, I was completely defeated. Everyone either thought I was nuts or drug-seeking. Even family still treated it like mental health. I gave up. Then, yesterday, my youngest cousin made taco rice for dinner. I'm sitting there eating like a pig, and suddenly I bite down on something very hard, about the size of a small marble. I spit it into the napkin, and it's a bone, like an actual chunk of bone. My first thought was, how the heck does a bone like that end up in ground beef? Then it hit me. The lump feeling was gone. For the first time in 35 years. No swelling, no pain, no persistent lump sensation, no mumps, nothing, just normal. TLDR, I spent 35 years being told I had mumps, anxiety, allergies, or was making it up, did years of therapy, got my tonsils removed, did years of allergy shots. Then yesterday, I bit down on a bone chunk during dinner, and the lifelong lump in throat sensation disappeared instantly. Before the comments, no, I haven't had imaging since. I'm booking an ENT follow-up because this is insane. Yes, I kept it, bagged it because nobody will believe me otherwise. I get that it could have been lodged somewhere weird, tonsillar area, throat pocket, etc. I'm not claiming medical magic, just that this happened exactly like I described. I also get that it could be something other than bone, also why I saved it. The proof, And then the OP attached an actual picture of the thing next to a 100 yen coin for scale. Not gonna put it on the screen because I feel like it's just kind of gross. It's like a small brown chunk looking thing, better safe than sorry. But it did mark the end of the original post, so now's the time to speculate before you find out. Anybody agree with OP that it must be some piece of bone, or did OP as a kid swallow some metal and it got stuck in there or something? Take a second, build your theory, we'll get into the comments and OP's responses to them, and then we'll get into the update. A user named Miss Malicious commented, I wonder if you lost a tooth way back and swallowed it, and it got stuck in one of the many folds in your throat. Still weird how no one wanted to do more imaging of your throat, especially as a child. A tooth being somewhere it shouldn't should have glowed on an x-ray. Glad you finally got relief though. The OP responded, holy crap, this might actually be it. It is kinda dead tooth shaped and sized. I'll bring this up at my appointment. Go look at the pic I posted in another reply. Miss Malicious evidently looked at the photo and replied, yeah, that honestly looks like a baby tooth that has a couple decades of rot and such wrapped around it. Kids swallow their teeth all the time. You may have just been one of the very, very small percentage that had it not follow through the esophagus down to the stomach. I'm just someone who's fascinated by weird medical. Definitely bring it up with your doctor and get it tested. So cool. I'm glad you finally have relief all these years later. Another user named Costco Vodka Fancier commented, calcified tonsil stone? A user named Crested Gecko VV replied to that saying, this is what I'm thinking, that when he had that first allergic reaction, his body never got rid of it and it was a pocket in the mucosal area off the main tonsils, etc. Like, I have small tonsils and where I get tonsil stones is actually in these little pockets that are behind / the side of the back of my tongue and my throat. Not the actual tonsils. My partner has huge tonsils and regularly gets tonsil issues, etc. versus I don't, but when I do, it's always my little tonsils clearing up quick, but the area below takes way longer to hack up, like weeks later if not months. Another user named Flogman89 said, hello, I am a dentist. That's an odd color for a piece of bone that's come loose from a structure in the body. But thinking about your sensation of this object over the years, and it kind of moving, almost makes me wonder if you accidentally aspirated some object back when you were a kid, and maybe you thought it came out, but it never actually did, but it was so flat that you could still breathe and it not obstruct your airway, and it was so kind of irregularly shaped that it couldn't easily just be coughed up. Did the ENT ever look down your trachea or larynx? Also, bone, when you look up at it very close, typically is very porous, almost like a sponge, has a lot of holes in it. Any chance we can get a really close picture of this object? Another user named Zimagachi replied, I can't imagine he would have had his own living bone in his throat, and I have to assume that dead bone would have disintegrated by now. I bet it's plastic, part of a toy or the cap from something. I don't think plastic shows up very well on imaging either, right? VOP responded, strong possibility. I chewed on stuff like crazy as a kid. I'll bring this up during my appointment as well. Zimagachi replied, they're going to examine it under a microscope and find copyright 1982 Hasbro. VOP responded, I mean, that would be pretty epic. 100% going to reach out to Hasbro if that's the case. Hasbro has some of the most durable products a kid could want, guaranteed to last at least 35 years embedded in soft tissue, or your money back. The OP then went on to post their first update, January 28th, 2026. 1 week later, update, Doc had to send it off for pathology to see what it is and make sure it's nothing to be worried about. They did cut into it, and you can clearly see some kind of base layer covered in 35 years of other crud. Checked out my throat, and could pretty clearly see where it came from. The nurse and doc seemed to think it's something organic, maybe a fishbone or scale, but laughed and did not dismiss the 1982 Hasbro idea. Should hear back on what it is in the next few days. Also, shout out to the staff at the ENT office who got a kick out of this post and the replies. VOP then posted a final update a few days later on February 3rd, 2026. Winner, winner. Pathology stated it's a fragment of tooth. Thinking back, I had a lot of baby teeth pulled as a kid because they just would not fall out. Wonder if one broke and a chunk vanished, and that's where it came from. It was too far gone to identify what tooth it might have come from. I've never had major dental issues outside of not losing teeth like a normal kid. No cavities, no gum issues, nothing. Well, that story was quite the journey, and if you want to help support me in covering stories like these, the best way to do so would be to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. Our next story is, Today I Messed Up in the Grocery Store with My Mom. Original post, January 17th, 2026. I went shopping with my mom. My purpose was to just drive her from point A to point B and back. However, my mom wanted me to actually be with her while she did her thing in the grocery store. So there I was, pushing a trolley while my mom ticked items off a grocery list. I was zoning out when my mom unexpectedly elbowed me in the ribs and instructed me to look at this girl working in the beauty section. I looked at the girl and then looked back at my mom like, "Do you know her or something?" My mom said that she didn't know the girl yet, but she was willing to get to know the girl on my behalf if it meant saving me from perpetually being single. I instructed my mom to focus on the primary objective, which was to get all her groceries and go home. My mom asked if I thought the girl was cute. I shrugged and reduced my response to an "I guess," but deep down I thought she was hot as freak. My mom said she was going to approach the girl and ask for assistance, but it was all part of her plan to extract information. I begged my mom to stop, but she refused to listen. As soon as she approached the girl, I made sure I was as far away from the beauty section as possible. Moments later, my mom found me hiding in the men's health section and informed me that the girl in the beauty section was interested in meeting me. I asked my mom, what did she tell this girl to make her want to meet me? My mom practically pushed me away and said, "Just go." Fast forward to me awkwardly walking towards the girl in the beauty section. I waved and said my mom sent me. The girl said that my mom was right about me having gorgeous hair. I said thanks. She said she was totally jealous and proceeded to show me a bunch of hair products. I said I appreciated her time, but I didn't plan on purchasing pricey hair products before payday. The girl lowered her voice and said she figured she might as well sell me something since my mom said I would apparently do anything to get a girl like her. I apologized on my mom's behalf and said I was going to walk away now so I could go cringe and die. I kid you not, I turned around and noticed my mom was at the end of the aisle pretending to look at crap on the shelves. I called out to my mom and mouthed, "What the freak?" My mom closed the distance between us and asked me if I told the girl that I was a Cancerian. The girl said that she was a Capricorn. Out of curiosity, I asked the girl when she was born. She said January 7th, 2007. I looked at my mom and said, "Did you hear that, mother? I graduated high school the year she turned 1. My mom looked at the girl and asked if she perhaps had an older sister. I decided to walk away and wait outside until my mom was done. When she finally exited the grocery store, I made her promise not to talk about what happened. So that was the end of the original post, and I just gotta say, I think what's throwing me through a loop the most is the fact that somebody born in 2007 is fresh out of school. Like, as far as I'm concerned, somebody born in 2007 should still be playing with their Mega Bloks or something. The worst part that hurts the most is just the mom trying so hard. "Would you like to meet my son? He's got gorgeous hair." Nothing gets a lady ready to meet the man of her dreams than his mom rolling up like, "He's got really pretty hair." And at least she was 19, it sounds like it could have been worse. One commenter wrote, "I read the whole story thinking you were 18 to 20 years old. Getting to the end and realizing you're in your late 30s turned this from a cute story into a tragic comedy. Thank you for the laugh, sir." Another commenter wrote, "You didn't freak up, unless it was by choosing a busybody for a mother, and I'm pretty sure that's not possible." And a third commenter wrote, "Your mom really treated the grocery store like a dating app and the beauty aisle like her matchmaking headquarters. Honestly, impressive confidence, absolutely unhinged execution." The OP then posted an update January 18th, 2026, the next day. "Today IF update in the grocery store with my mom. Dropped off some things at my parents' house, and the first thing my dad did when he saw me was put his arm around my shoulder and say, 'Mom told me what happened in the supermarket, son.' He was referring to my mom, attempting to set me up with one of the girls working at the grocery store, but then it turned out that the girl was 19. For the record, I'm 35. My dad offered me a drink and said my mom was only trying to help. I said mom needed to stay out of my love life, which prompted my dad to point out that I had no love life. My dad asked if everything was okay with me physically. I said yes. My dad nodded and said, "So it's not a performance problem?" I said no and gulped down my drink so I could be on my way. My dad instructed me to follow him to the garage, which I did, albeit reluctantly. My dad wanted me to see the progress he's made with the car he's had since he was a teenager. It was far from being drivable, but my dad made it look great. As per my dad's instructions, both of us got in the car. My dad was behind the wheel and I was sitting next to him. What happened next was an unexpected dose of TMI. My dad said that he had many girls inside his car and on top of his car. He pointed at the passenger seat I was sitting in and said he almost got a girl pregnant in that seat. He pointed at the windshield and said he lost count of how many footprints were left behind. He pointed at the back seat and said he had to triple the amount of towels he used from then on. He pointed at the handbrake, and that's when I finally interrupted. I asked my dad if he was teaming up with my mom to traumatize me for being single. My dad continued to point at the handbrake and said he once challenged a girl to do some wild stuff before releasing the handbrake and letting the car slowly roll down a small hill. And to top it all, the girl became his wife, aka my mom. I said I was gonna get out of the hooking up car now. My dad stopped me and said the point he's trying to make was to have some freaking fun. He said, "I've got the job, I've got the apartment, I've got the car, I've got my mom's hair, so stop wasting my 30s on working so hard to achieve the rewards that I forget to freaking enjoy the rewards." I thanked my dad for the words of wisdom, even though it was disturbing as freak. The end, hopefully, fingers crossed. Yeah, OP, after that nice pep talk, don't you want to just loosen up and live a little? Is OP going to be somebody that rushes into a relationship just so they don't have to hear their dad talk about how they banged their mom? I get it, I'll stop being single, sorry. Our next story is, today I messed up by accidentally becoming my client's wife's boyfriend. Original post, August 1st, 2025. This happened a couple of months back, but I saw a skit online that was scarily similar to what actually happened to me IRL. For context, I'm a divorce attorney, been practicing for about 8 years now, mostly family law stuff, generally pretty routine work. People want to untangle their lives, I help them do it legally, everyone moves on. Let's flash back to last March. I took on what seemed like a straightforward dissolution case. Client, I'll call Dave. Nice enough guy, been separated from his wife for over a year, just wanted to make it official. Nothing complicated, decent retainer, figured we'd have it wrapped up in a few months. Dave seemed reasonable, not one of those vindictive types trying to burn everything down out of spite. Around the same time, I'd been seeing this woman Sarah for a couple of months. Met her at a coffee shop near my office, really hit it off. She mentioned going through a divorce, but I didn't pry. Not exactly first date conversation, you know? She had a different last name from what was in my client files, so when I ran my conflict checks, nothing flagged. Everything was going great with Sarah. Really great, actually. We were taking things slow, but it was heading in a good direction until we scheduled the first four-way settlement meeting. I walked into the conference room with Dave, chatting about keeping things amicable, and there's Sarah sitting across the table with her attorney. I literally just stopped mid-sentence. My briefcase slipped right out of my hands and hit the floor with this loud thud. Sarah went completely white. Dave looked back and forth between us for what felt like an eternity, and I could see the exact moment it clicked for him. "Are you freaking serious right now?" he says. Not shouting, but definitely not pleased. Sarah started tearing up. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. I'm standing there feeling like the biggest moron in legal history. Had to immediately excuse myself with Dave. Guy was understandably ticked. Started grilling me. How long had this been going on? Did I know who she was? Was this some kind of setup to screw him over? I'm trying to explain that I'd been dating his wife for a couple months without having any clue who she was. He didn't buy it at first. What kind of lawyer doesn't ask basic questions? He keeps saying. Had to pull out my intake notes to prove the same thing. Show him how the conflict check works, basically convince an angry client that I'm incompetent rather than malicious. Took about 20 minutes before he finally believed it was just spectacularly bad luck. Even then, he's shaking his head, muttering about how freaked up this whole situation is. I explained that I'd have to withdraw from his case and help him find new counsel. There's no getting around it. I've got a personal relationship with the opposing party, which makes it impossible for me to represent him properly. By the end, he had calmed down enough to say, "This is the weirdest dang thing that's ever happened to me." Still wasn't happy about starting over with a new lawyer, but he understood why it had to happen. The paperwork was a nightmare. Had to file a motion to withdraw since we were already in litigation, transfer all his files, deal with the refunding unused fees. Sarah and I didn't speak for 2 weeks after that meeting. We were both mortified. Her attorney spent forever trying to convince himself this wasn't some elaborate scheme. Even though nobody intended for this to happen, it was still my screw-up. Should have had better procedures to catch conflicts like this. Doesn't matter that it was an accident. You mess up the conflict check, you deal with the consequences. You deal with the consequences. Dave texted me back a few weeks later, but it wasn't friendly. More like, "Hope you realize this completely freaked up my timeline." Can't say I blame him. And just to add insult to injury, my malpractice insurance premium went up when I had to report the conflict. So that's the end of the original post, and I absolutely agree. I could see this being some comedic skit somewhere. You know, you sit down with the whole, all right, let's get down to Bill, my God. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" So in the comments, one commenter wrote, "I mean, you did waste a lot of his money on whatever time you spent that the new lawyer would have to redo. Did you and Sarah at least continue dating afterwards?" The OP replied, hijacking top comment to answer some questions. Sarah used another name socially that Dave had not disclosed. Her file had her legal name, our check didn't catch it, and I didn't connect the dots. Her and I's relationship was less emotionally involved. To keep it brief, I've been overworked and dealing with more than a full caseload. Yes, I could have done better at preventing this from happening. This was a major freak-up. On her end, I don't think she knew based on her reaction, as well as her being a workaholic too. Pretty much all communication had been directly between me and her counsel. No, her and I did not continue seeing each other, for obvious reasons. Also, not a bot. Made a throwaway specifically so this would not be traced back to me or my firm. And in another comment from the OP, they wrote, "I don't fault Dave at all. I was sleeping with his wife while representing him. There's no version of that where I'm the victim. It doesn't matter that I didn't know who she was at first. By the time I figured it out, the damage was already done. He had real things riding on that case. Money, time, his business, and my withdrawal blew up his timeline. I can say it wasn't intentional, but that doesn't mean it didn't wreck him. He had every right to hate me for it." The OP then goes on to post an update October 8th, 2025, 2 months later. So it's been about 7 months since the conference room incident. Editor's note, since the incident, not OP's OG post. And people have been asking what happened. Short answer, it's been a mess. About 3 weeks after I withdrew from Dave's case, I got called into a meeting with these senior partners. 3 partners, our firm's general counsel, and a rep from our malpractice carrier on a video call. The managing partner slides a folder across the table. Opposing counsel reported a conflict of interest issue to the state bar under Rule 8.3. We've been notified of a disciplinary inquiry. Freak. Dave's new attorney filed the report. They don't get to decide what happens. They just report potential violations and the bar takes it from there. I have to explain everything. How I met Sarah, how we had been casually dating for a couple of months, how she used a different name socially, how my conflict check on her legal name didn't flag anything because I never connected the dots. The general counsel is taking notes. Walk me through your conflict check process. I explain the intake procedures, how the system works, how Sarah's legal surname didn't match what she told me. It sounds worse when I say it out loud. This is a clear model Rule 1.7 A2 issue, material limitation conflict, the general counsel says. You were correct to withdraw under Rule 1.16, but we need to understand how this wasn't caught earlier. The malpractice carrier rep unmutes and says, we'll need to document this as a circumstance that could lead to a claim. It'll be noted when your policy comes up for renewal. Great. The firm mandates that I complete an 8-hour CLE on conflicts of interest before taking any new client intakes. They've already registered me for a seminar that Saturday. 8 a.m., of course. I show up at a hotel conference room with about 20 other attorneys. One of the instructors is Patricia, a divorce attorney I've opposed a few times. She definitely knows why I'm there, based on the look she gave me. Most of the morning is standard material, rules, case law, procedures. Then we get to case studies, and Patricia brings up in Ree Johnson, a 2019 disciplinary matter. Attorney representing a divorce client starts dating someone, discovers it at a settlement conference. Same exact situation as mine from 6 years ago in a different state, and I wanted to sink through the floor. At lunch, another attorney mentions he heard about something similar happening at a firm in town recently. Doesn't know it's me, but clearly the story's getting around. I finish the seminar, pass the exam, bring the certificate back to the firm. A few weeks later, the bar sends a letter. The inquiry is closed with a private caution. Basically a warning that stays in their files but isn't public discipline. Could have been worse. My malpractice premium went up about 15% when it renewed in September. The carrier cited the reported disciplinary circumstance in the renewal letter. The firm implemented some new procedures for me specifically. For the next 6 months, I have to get conflicts pre-cleared by the general counsel before taking on any new client. They also added mandatory AKA/nickname fields to our intake forms and conflict check system. The worst part isn't the official stuff though, it's that people know. Not everyone, but enough. I've been called the coffee shop lawyer twice at bar events. Last month, opposing counsel asked if I'd met the other party before with this look on her face. The story's definitely circulating. Some versions have me engaged as Sarah, one has me not finding out until trial. It's becoming one of those cautionary tales people tell each other. Haven't dated anyone since March. Deleted the apps. Before I did, I matched with someone who mentioned her divorce, and I immediately asked who her lawyer was. She unmatched pretty quick. Can't really blame her. Dave, if you see this, I'm sorry, man. I really didn't know. I hope things worked out okay for you. Sarah, hope you're doing well. Everyone else, just ask the basic questions, run proper conflict checks, verify AKAs. It's not worth it. So this poor OP. I do gotta say though, at least they didn't lose their job, at least they weren't like suspended for a while. They got a reputation going around, but hopefully OP can kind of just stomach those and not make themselves look any worse by like trying to outwardly fight it. If someone brings it up or someone asks, just explain how it is, how it clearly wasn't intentionally malicious and it wasn't ruled that way. And hopefully OP doesn't let it stop them from going out there on Tinder or whatever app and trying to meet some people. Even if they do feel compelled to ask, are you going through a divorce? And if so, who is your lawyer? A user named Theo left a comment saying, thanks for the update. Honestly speaking, from my non-lawyer brain, I think you really drew the crappiest hand. I don't think it's your fault and that you took the right steps when you found out. I hope this will turn into a funny story soon. I was already rooting for you after your first post. I don't think this says anything about your skills as a lawyer. Another user named Suave Savior replied, I work for lawyers and it's such a small community, even in a big city. I, without ever asking or digging, know so much dirt on so many lawyers. I know who had the mental breakdowns, who's been to rehab, and for what, who got arrested for soliciting UA prostitutes, who knocked up their secretaries, who pew-pewed themselves with a fellow lawyer's gun. And that's just the first few off the top of my head, and doesn't even include the dirt I know about attorneys I've actually worked for. Man, I feel you, but in a few years' time, it'll feel more like mythology and less like a ghost haunting you. Another user named JCRC replied, I'm a paralegal, and this is so true. If I heard the story about an attorney I knew, I wouldn't think less of him. Attorneys daring their staff, taking sexual favors as payment, skimming from trust accounts, that stuff is way worse. And another user named PossibleLettuce42 commented, man, I don't know how long you've been an attorney, but discipline cases get so much worse than this. Stop beating yourself up. First, it wasn't intentional or through some incredibly basic neglect. Basic conflict checks were done and just didn't ring an alarm bell. Second, you immediately did the right things once you realized. Third, you've paid your price, man. You've done your stupid all-day CLE, All these new procedures, paid the new premiums, taken the small and temporary reputation hit. Man, you've been penalized. Stop adding more time onto your sentence. There was a local attorney who was openly dating clients in lieu of payment multiple times, and it still took 2 years before he was finally suspended. You got zinged with a rare circumstance that let you fine-tune your conflict checks and learn a valuable lesson. You're not a fly-by-night garbage attorney. I have more experience as prosecution, but I've done enough defense work in my private practice years to give you the advice I've given self-flagellating clients. Guilt and shame are constructive to a point. Once you've already made amends and done your time, you're benefiting nobody by beating yourself up more. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. But if you want to add more time to your sentence, you can check out another Today I F'd Up video that I made right there on the left of the screen right now. Or you could check out my latest video on the right of the screen. That's it, I'll see you all next time with an extended sentence with some more stories.